Guys, what's going on? It is Ash here coming at you today in Raid Shadow Legends. Thank you for joining me today. Today we're going to talk about how to build a successful team inside Raid Shadow Legends. So one of the big things on Raid Shadow Legends is there is no best champion. It's very subjective, right? And there's also no best team. I've seen players out there take a bunch of rares, even some uncommon champions, put them together with the right type of gear sets and equipment on, and being able to outperform a team of all legendary champions. That's not just lip service, that's true, you know? So a lot goes into the thought process and the strategy behind your team on top of your artifacts and on top of, you know, just the sheer rarity of your champions. So today we're going to talk about how to build a balanced team and some of the key roles and attributes that you want to keep an eye out for when you're building this team. So before we jump into the roles that every team kind of needs, let's talk quickly about the different dungeons and arena, campaign, faction wars, clan boss. Well, let's talk everywhere about what is the main thing you're looking for in each of these areas of the game really quick. So campaign, a lot of it's about speed. If you're in Nightmare trying to accomplish it, well, other rules that we'll talk about later in this video will follow suit in that regard. In terms of clan boss, you really want to be prioritizing defense, sustainability, and of course, having like a poison layer on your team is very important, if not two, and a healer, some support on your team. In the arena, we'll talk about a bunch of different team compositions in later on in this video towards the end. In Faction Wars, one of the big keys in Faction Wars is actually having a lot of crowd control. Having a lot of crowd control, because as you progress in Faction Wars, it's going to be really, really challenging. The champions are incredibly difficult, even after the nerfs to Faction Wars. So having crowd control is pivotal. It's crucial to having success in progressing in your Faction Wars. Talk about what exactly crowd control entails in just a moment. So as far as the regular dungeons outside the keeps, because each of those are a little bit different as well, when we talk about the main four dungeons here, Ice Golem, Dragons, Fire Knight, and Spider's Den. So what you want to do is Dragon, Poison, sustainability is really important. Poison does really well against the Dragon. You don't need crowd control as much because the Dragon's turn meter cannot be changed, and in terms of he's invincible to stuns and all those type of effects, as are every bosses in the game except for turn meter. On Fire Knight, you want those multi-hitters, and you really want turn meter, because Fire Knight, against turn meter manipulation, champions that have an ability that decreases the enemy's turn meter will work against Fire Knight once you get that shield down, so that's really important to have too. So multi-hitters, preferably on your A1, and or really anywhere in their kit, but especially their A1, and so you can use it a lot to get those shields down. And after that, turn meter manipulation. That's why Allure, who has an incredible turn meter manipulation on her A1, is so good in Fire Knight. In terms of Spider's Den, turn meter manipulation works there too. You also really need that crowd control, need those stuns, especially as you progress to later stages, to make sure that those spiderlings aren't constantly attacking your heavy damage dealers or your champions that are low in HP. Also, HP burn works really, really well in spiders, because all those HP burns are going to spread to the mother spider and do a lot of damage per tick per turn. Ice Golem, having a team, again, with turn meter is really important, right? So turn meter works against the Ice Golem, so you should know that it works against Ice Golem and against the Spider. Works against the Fire Knight too, does not work against Clan Boss and against Dragon's Lair, okay? And anything else? Oh, the champions that have the ability to have a no revival upon death. Works really well too in Ice Golem's Peak. If you have one of those champions, consider them subbing them in to be your main damage dealer. That way you won't have to deal with the minions, the two guards of the Ice Golem, every time he respawns them during your battle. That will shave a lot of time and make the battle much easier for you to accomplish. So anyway, guys, let's go ahead and talk about like a team. What constitutes a team? Because like I threw a lot at you guys there, but in truth, I mean, not everybody, especially early game and even mid game, you just don't have enough champions to have specific teams with all the right gear for every one of these dungeons. So let's talk about like a well-balanced team that can really handle any situation, and let's focus mainly on rare and epic champions that are more accessible to everybody watching this video. So the first thing you need, and one of the most important things that oftentimes players don't realize until the mid game or until kind of the late game, the end game, is crowd control. So what the heck is crowd control exactly, right? Well, there's a few different, there's 5 ways, I think, of crowd control, right? Stun is the best, widely considered to be the best, right? So having a champion or two that has stun on your team is really important. Have a stun ability, because again, you're not taking damage and you can kill them faster, the enemies, if they're stunned and they're gonna lose their entire turn. Sleep is kind of like the little brother, the really little brother to the stun ability. Let me give you a couple examples here. So I have, granted it is a legendary, but just to show you what the skill is, I have a sleep ability on all champions. Now the problem with sleep is, it's great for crowd control, it does the same thing that stun does. Once their turn meter is full, they lose their turn. The difference between sleep and stun is that if you do any damage to the champion at all, the sleep is broken. They wake up and they get to take their turn again. So it's not really beneficial, especially on auto farming teams or any team that's going to be on auto attack. So sleep is very niche and it's mostly used in the arena for a specific purpose, okay? As you would see on Prince Kymar. But a stun is totally different. I run, and my favorite epic is Miscreated Monster. On his A2, he has a 50% chance of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn on an AoE attack. So you might be telling yourself, saying right now, Ash, that's great, dude, but I don't have any good AoE stun champions in my roster. Well, you know, what you need to do in those situations, if you just have no stun champions on your team, you can consider a freeze champion, a provoke champion, or a turn meter, having a lot of turn meter manipulation on your team too. Those are all the forms of crowd control. Provoke on an AoE, preferably. Sleep, stun, freeze, and turn meter. So decrease turn meter. It's crowd control because it's preventing the enemy team from taking their turns as they normally would. That makes such a huge difference. If you're struggling anywhere in this game, add some stuns onto your team, some freeze onto your team, or whatever, you know? I mean, or turn meter manipulation, okay? So let's talk about another champion that's a little bit more accessible to you guys. Let's talk about one more example here. Let's say you don't have any of that stuff, right? You don't even have a Cold Heart for the A3 for the decreases the target's turn meter by 100%. We're going to talk a little bit about Cold Heart more later. But you can take a champion like Bellower or like Elaine, right? Champions that have one of two things you're looking for here. Thing number one is a bunch of AoE attacks. Look at Bellower. Has an AoE on his A1, has an AoE on his A2, and has an AoE attacks all enemies on his A3. Every single one of his abilities is touching every single enemy. So what you want to do is build him up with higher accuracy and put a stun set on him like I have. Granted, I'm missing a chest plate, but you know. Check it out, right? 18% chance of placing a stun debuff. Now, if you have just the gear on them and nothing else, you don't need the accuracy, okay? I just said add accuracy. I was thinking if they have an ability that's based on stun. The gear is not based on accuracy, so you don't have to build him up with a lot of accuracy to have a 18% chance of landing this stun debuff, okay? Really important to know that gear is not based on accuracy. Accuracy is based on the champion's abilities, okay? So important to understand that and to build champions with AoEs on stun. Now, Elaine is good too. She only has one AoE. However, if you check her out here, on her skills, you can see attacks one enemy, attacks one enemy. On her AO3, attacks all enemies 2 times. That's 2 times to land a stun per ability. So you're looking for champions, if you don't have a champions with a bunch of AoEs like Bellower, you're looking for champions like Elaine with 2 or 3 hitters on one ability. It's going to give you a double chance of trying to land those stuns in the stun gear, okay? So CC is so important in this game. I think I've stated that enough here. So crowd control is what you want on your team, okay? Really important. Provoke does the same thing, right? So getting a Provoke champion will keep all the enemies, they'll still get their turns, but they'll be forced to use their A1s against that specific champion. And most Provoke champions have really high, robust defense, or they have an unkillable or something like that. They have abilities to keep them alive when they have the Provoke down. Next up is a main damage dealer on your team, right? So when I say a main damage dealer, I'm talking about champions that have their damage based on max HP is great. So let's look at, there's 2 really well-known ones, but there's a few others too that I'll mention in today's video just in case you don't have them. And where are they? One's epic and one is rare, and you guys can probably already guess. So one is, dude, why am I that old that I can't find? Are any of you guys like me and you just can never find champions? All right, I have two of them. This is my second one, but Royal Guard. On his takedown ability, you can see the damage is based on attack and enemy max HP. It's an AoE attack too, that's great, but really this ability is all about doing 500 to 1,000,000 damage to the boss, right? He's the type of champion who will get you through the waves, all right, he'll help you on the waves, but his real utility is when you get to the boss, he will, take a huge chunk off of their HP because it's based on the max enemy HP. When he's hitting regular mobs, regular minions with this ability, it's not going to be doing as much damage, right? Because their max HP is so much lower, but it works really well against bosses. Next up, we have Coldheart, right? So we talked about Coldheart earlier. We just showed her A3, and again, her A3, her Heartseeker, damage is based on enemy max HP, okay? A couple other champions that you guys can use are Husk and Septimus. So Septimus is legendary, but let me just pull them both up for you guys. So here's Husk, guys, and on his A2, you can see attacks all enemies, 35% chance of placing a stun, so that's great too, having that stun ability, and then damage is based off of enemy max HP. I've noticed that this does not multiply as well as Royal Guards, just in my opinion, but still Husk is a great option for you guys if you don't have Royal Guard or Coldheart, if you're looking for another damage dealer. And also Septimus, again, the Septimus is legendary, but he bears, it bears noting here because, again, these champions are hard to come by, these max HP damage dealers. So here's Septimus. Holy Sword, damage based on attack and enemy, max enemy HP, also ignores shield and block debuff. So this guy's just incredible, but still, those are the champions that you're really looking at for a big damage dealer. Now, if you guys don't have any of those champions that we talked about here, just go for a single hitter. Usually they're single or multi-hitters, but not AoE nukers that can do a lot of damage via ignore defense abilities or big damage multipliers. You guys have been watching my channel for a while. You know that I love, where is she? Barbarian, you guys know, it's Soulbound. So she's a rare champion, way easier to come by in this game, and she has great damage. She has attacks one enemy, has an additional 25% chance of inflicting a critical hit, and will ignore 75% of the target's defense. That's great. That's a great ability to have, and she can be one of your main boss damage dealers on your team until you get some really solid champions down the road, those big heavy hitters. But you can get by with a character like Soulbound Bowyer as your main damage dealer once you get to the boss, okay? Let's go ahead and move on to the next category, which is, we're staring right at her, we might as well talk about it, the debuffer on your team. So having a defense down is another one of those things that is so important, right? I see a lot of teams running maybe 3 nukers and a couple healers or something like that, right? But they don't have a defense down. And would you believe that if I just have a War Maiden, a rare champion who has a defense down on her A3 here, if I put her in for like a legendary damage dealer, if I had a team with no defense down and I put in a War Maiden in place of, say, like a Biggin, a really strong AoE nuker, it would still go faster if I just had a defense down champion in there. Defense down makes such a dramatic difference on how long it will take you to clear the mobs, the trash mobs, the first 2 waves in these dungeons, and in campaign as well, that it's imperative to have a defense down in most situations, okay? Towards the end game, you can play around with different compositions, and you might be able to get away without a defense down. But having a War Maiden, or my personal favorite, a Stag Knight, I'm running Stag Knight everywhere right now, guys. Here he is. I love this ability. Attacks all enemies, 70% chance, 95% chance when booked of placing a defense down and an attack down for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown when booked out. Man, Stag Knight is amazing. He's a great debuffer, and he adds another kind of option instead of Tyrell, which everybody ran Tyrell for a long time because he was one of the more accessible and really strong. He still is really strong, but now we have another option out there, which is really nice to have. Tyrell's great. He has a decreased attack on his A1, and he has a decreased defense on his A2. You get both those abilities on the A2 of Stag Knight, which is why I actually prefer Stag Knight in most situations to a Tyrell. Tyrell does have that nice ally defense in all battles by 25%. Having a good aura is going to help you as well, right? If you're dying a lot, put in a champion with a defense aura. If you're not dying a lot, but you want to improve your team's speed, go ahead and swap out your Tyrell for a champion with a great attack aura, okay? Or build a team around a crit damage aura, I don't know, or a speed aura. But just make sure you're considering why you're using the champion in the lead with that aura, rather than just randomly placing one. Make sure that it suits your needs for that composition. There is no best aura to ever have on your team, okay? So we talk about it, a defense down. Really important part of any team, okay? The next category is going to be an AoE nuker, right? So AoE nukers, as opposed to your Soulbound Bowyer, your heavy hitters, your Cold Hearts, etc., their job is going to be to help you get through the waves faster, right? So let's go ahead and just take a quick look at one of my teams, and you guys will see what I'm talking about, right? Let's just go to my. It doesn't matter. They're all kind of built the same for the most part. Let's just go to my Fire Knights 20 team, right? So check it out, guys, right? I have my AoE nuker, and believe it or not, this is kind of a weird situation, right? Believe it or not, with the increased accuracy in the dungeon, I'm just it's better. I have a better chance at landing my decreased turn meter, which is actually based off accuracy, and I have a better chance of landing on my debuffs. Even though my accuracy is pretty high, I found that having a increased accuracy in my situation, in the lead, on the biggin, is actually helping me go way faster. So test things out. You wouldn't think that an increased accuracy, when all your champions are already at 200 plus accuracy, would even make a difference, but it does. It made a difference for me. Anyway, so my AoE nuker in this situation, I have two, right? I actually have kind of three when you look at Royal Guard. But I have Dark Elaine and I have Biggin. I mean, Biggin especially, his job is to get me through the waves. So having a great AoE nuker, this is a legendary, but there's plenty of great AoE nukers out there in every single rarity from rare on and above, right? But check it out, man. We have an AoE on the A1, two-hitter, and then on the A2, he has a chance of landing the stun. So Biggin is a 2-for-1 deal. I love it, right? He's not only doing a lot of damage on all his abilities, but he's also landing stuns and helping with decreased turn meter on his A3, because he's hitting each enemy 2 times, decreased turn meter by 25%. So he has a lot of CC, a lot of crowd control, and he's helping me out my waves just by doing the damage and killing them. So he's a 2. That's why Biggin is so good in this game. And I think he's one of the top tier champions in the game because he serves those 2 roles, and he does it so well in both those roles. But it's okay if you don't have Biggin, it's cool. Just run somebody who does have a lot of damage on AoE. You need an AoE nuker if you want to have any speed, any alacrity in your run, right? You need somebody who's actually going to kill these enemies and put out a decent amount of damage. So in this team, again, I have an AoE nuker in crowd control and Biggin. I have a crowd control and support, which is the next category we'll talk about, in my Miscreated Monster. I have my decreased defense in my Stag Knight. I have my AoE in Dark Elaine, and Dark Elaine is actually serving a role of doing damage to the Fire Knight, or excuse me, to the Ice Golem as well, because she has a cool ability. I'll show you guys. A cool passive that removes, no, this one. Fills this champion's turn meter by 25% and instantly activates the Death's Majesty skill whenever this champion or any ally receives a freeze debuff. So every time the Ice Golem puts a freeze on any of my team, she's gonna, boom, she goes automatically with Death's Majesty. It's incredible. It's a great ability. I love it. So anyway, in her case though, she's my AoE nuker on the team, right? She also helps out with damage on the boss, and as we talked about, my main damage dealer once I get to the boss is going to be my Royal Guard on that takedown ability, which we talked about earlier, right? So let's go ahead. I feel like I'm kind of rambling here, but there's a lot of information to get out here. It's going to be a little bit of a longer video, I guess, right? So the other position that we're going to talk about here, guys, is the support, the healer, or in this case, it's actually Miscreated Monster. So Miscreated Monster is another dual-purpose champion, and don't be afraid, actually be encouraged to use dual-purpose champions. Miscreated's great because he's landing the stuns on the A2, and sure, he's not putting down heals on my allies, but instead he's putting down a shield, right? So shield can act as heals because it's just absorbing the damage and keeping my team alive. He is my support on this team. He also has a great ability here in Ally Protect. So he's going to be taking 50% of the damage that comes into my allies, and he's also going to put a continuous heal on himself while healing himself. So even though he's not healing my allies, he is, just by his amazing kit, he's keeping himself alive, absorbing their damage, and putting shields on them. So a miscreated monster can keep your team alive. An option for a rare champion is Apothecary, or having a revival champion, you know, such as Reliquary Tender. I can never say her damn name right, but you guys get the point. Is having a revive champion will help you out too, and most revive champions are also heal champions. So there you have it, guys. Those are the main things that we want to talk about. The main support, a debuffer, a nuker, main damage dealer, and crowd control. And having, you know, duplicates in any of these things is great too. One last thing I want to talk about is the arena, because the arena does differ a little bit from everything else, right? So when we go to the arena here, you only have 4 champions. You don't have 5, right? So first thing to consider here is, okay, what do I, and same thing with the campaign, guys. A lot of the rules, the same basic rules apply to campaign as we talked about here, right? Just, you know, having 1 nuker is important, having 1 support, having 1 debuffer is going to be great for your team, okay? Or having 2 damage dealers, or some champions with crowd control serving like a dual purpose, okay? But for arena, there's really 4 types of arena teams right now that you can build, right? You can build a team of just speed nuking, and that's what you want in a good speed comp. So if I wanted to build a speed nuking team, I would take out this heavy damage dealer in Krutraxa, who's a single hitter, and I'd probably just add in another AoE nuker, right? We can add, I mean, we have plenty of them. There's a lot to choose from, but let's go ahead and let's put in Skullcrown. So now we have Skullcrown, we have an AoE nuker option on the team, we have 2 AoE nukers, and if you're speed farming, have a defense down is important as well. So I could sub out, I could put in my Stag Knight to get that defense down. You want to build them fast, right? You want to build, and this is something to note, you know, it goes for everything in this video. You really want your debuffer going first on your team. So when people talk about speed tuning, it can be intimidating, especially for new players of this game, right? But you don't have to, you know, stress yourself out here. Generally speaking, you want your nukers to go last, and you want your debuffers to go first, right? So it should be like your debuffer, your crowd control, your nuker and support go kind of towards the end, right? Because you don't need to heal in the beginning of the battle when no one's been touched yet. You don't need to revive in the beginning of the battle when no one's been attacked yet. You need like speed meter, speed boosts. Like an Apothecary is great because he's supporting your team, not by his heals, not just by his heals, but also by his speed boost. And having a speed booster is really important for the arena as well, okay? So this would be a nuking comp. I could put in a defense down if I wanted to as well, right? I could put in a Ghostborn, who's great in Legendary. There's another team going with high defense, right? So some people like to zig when everybody else zags. So we could go, you know, it's Kymar, you're great, but no thanks. Let's go ahead and put in someone with a great defensive aura like a Whirlim Frostking, right? Boom. Now we have increased defense in the arena by 30%, and what we can do is build a really strong, robust defensive team around him. And the idea here is turn meter manipulation in a Seeker is not going to be important to me anymore, and having a super high damage dealer team is not going to be important either. Instead, that's where you can shift your strategy. Okay, I'll go with, you know, let's see, who can I build next to him? You don't want to have a lot of redundancy in abilities, right? But let's just go ahead and put a Man-Eater in the team, right? Now we have an unkillable and high defense. So now we do need to do some damage. I can put Krutraxa back in. I can put Soulbound Bowyer in that spot. I can put a champion like, what's-her-face? Like Gala Longbraids in that spot, who I just did a champion guide on. Now this is a much more robust team. I already have very high defense. I have a revive on death, on kill, on Krutraxa. Actually, Mountain King would be even better because he has a much higher defense and resist, right? So granted, these are legendary champions, but the point here is this is another type of composition you can build. Have a high defense lead who has an increased defense in their kit. So you can see we have on the A3, a strengthen and increased defense. So now he's bolstering your defense by 30% just by being in the lead, and then an additional 60% by his ability, right? So you have a really strong team in terms of just their survivability, and then you can build off that. And the idea is you're not going to be going first in the arena. Instead, you're going to be going second, but your opponents have going to already use their best abilities, wasting them on your high defense after they go, you know? The next one is going to be a high resist team. High resist teams are even a little bit more niche than high defense. Essentially, you build as high resist as you possibly can, and it's off meta right now in the arena. People are usually building their champions up to have around you know, their debuffers to have around 300 accuracy. Obviously, it scales as you go higher. You know, and in early Gold League, it might be 200 accuracy, right? But as you go higher, you know, people are not building their champions with like 400, 300, 400 accuracy all the time, or 500. So if you load on resist, the enemy team's not going to be able to touch you, you know? And you can have a very high resist team by having a high resist lead in your team. If you have a resist lead in the arena, you can build in a resist team around them. I think I stripped him down, his gear, right? Yeah, I did, I think. No, I didn't. So my Mausoleum Mage here has a 437 resist. So he could be a great part of a resist team, and it's pretty cool too because he's also placing a block debuffs buff on all allies for 1 turn, increased crit rate, and increased defense. So I'm building a really, really strong kind of core alongside a Mausoleum Mage, right? And removes all debuffs from all allies. So cleansers are important to a resist team as well, are not as important, I should say, to a resist team. But when you put a Mausoleum Mage in your team with a high resist, the cool thing is even if your team gets debuffed, with his cleanse on Winds of Purging, I can take all of those debuffs right off, and I'm pretty confident that Mausoleum Mage, with his high resist, I don't have to worry about him getting debuffed or frozen or whatever, so he can't use his A3. So just a resist team is something that's cool that I actually don't really use myself too often, but it's cool if you just want to try something new in the arena, okay? And the last team is going to be a really strong kind of revive on death team, and boy do we see that right now in the arena. Let's see if I can just refresh and find one here. Did I pass one? Usually you see a team with a Siphi and a Duchess and an Arbiter or something all on the same team with a Rotos, right? And those can be so annoying. We see 2 of the 3 here, so just to kind of show you guys, right? Actually, you only see 1 there, my bad. Do we have 2 out of 3 anywhere here? We're not too high in the arena right now, so let's just try one more refresh and see if we can find one. But you guys get the point here, right? It's having a team, especially the higher you go, you'll find a lot of like double or triple revives on the same team. It's something that's fun to do, but it generally requires a higher kind of tier of champions. They're usually legendary champions, right, on a team like this. But you just have to kind of keep an eye out for these teams, especially if you're facing them, if you're trying to just kind of get to a new max in trophies in the arena or whatever. Just be aware of these teams. They're really challenging because once you kill one, the other one picks them back up. Once you kill that one, the other one picks them back up, and it's really tough, and it can snowball into, you know, you've taken 3 or 4 turns, you've killed all the enemies multiple times, but all of your good abilities are spent, you're done, you're toast, because they just keep reviving themselves, right? So guys, this is already a long video, so I'm gonna wrap things up here. I hope this helped a lot of you guys in terms of starting to just go over every area of the game, what you need on your team, and then breaking it down in terms of like critical roles on specific different types of teams within the game. Guys, thank you so much for watching the channel. We just hit 11,000 subscribers. Pretty cool here for my second channel to start it all over again. Honestly, I'm having a blast here on the channel, and I hope you guys are enjoying the ride as well. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, take care, guys.